Hi, my name's Loretta Chambers, and I want to say thank you to Keith Andrews for this interview. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to seeing what all you had to bring to the spectrum. Continue doing what you do. You have a really great platform starting here.
The whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can sell them out to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities. Never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are, who you're going to be. So prove to them, sell them out to something. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Keith Andrew, and this is Season 12, Episode number 9. It's Monday Night Raw. If you're into WWE, go to WWE.com and watch the highlights that are available on WWE.com, YouTube, Peacock, and soon in 2025. Sorry, I'm going back to a different year. In 2025. WWE Monday Night Raw will be moving to Netflix, but in the time being, USA Network, YouTube, and Peacock. Enjoy Monday Night Raw here tonight. Also, the first question I want to ask you is tell our audience a little bit about yourself as we begin with Icebreakers.
Hi, everybody. I'm Loretta Chambers. I was named after the country singer Loretta Lynn, and I was not born in this country. In fact, I was born in Germany on an army base. My dad was stationed over there during the Vietnam era, and I was only there for 9 months, and then I was mostly raised in West Virginia, which is where I live. Then went to college, got a bachelor's in criminal justice, minor in social work, never worked in it. But mostly I worked in healthcare as a CNA for over 20 years. Now I'm a sitter in a hospital with mental patients as well as dementia. Also, I am an aspiring actress. I've been doing the acting for about 10 years. I've had roles in some films for the past 2 years. Was in independent wrestling as a CEO for Legend Pro Wrestling here in West Virginia. And I have 3 kids, and I am married. And I like to travel. And I have 3 cats.
Well, I have that beat. When I was younger, I had 6 cats and 3 dogs.
Oh my gosh. I have dogs mostly. Now, one other interesting thing that I'd like to mention is when I was little, I used to be in crippled children's. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but I basically had a bone deficiency where I'm knock knee. I had to wear correction shoes because my feet were turned to the side, and I wore a night brace as a toddler and prior to going to school. And I had to go to a special what do they call it? A cobbler used to make my shoes when I was little. So I had to wear these, what do they call them? The Mary Janes. I used to have to wear Mary Jane shoes. And the braces were embarrassing. My grandma used to tell me I'd wear long dresses to church. So I was embarrassed of the braces. But I grew out of that, of course. And just a little something I wanted to share. And my legs have always been an issue. But I'm doing okay now.
No, that's all that matters. Knock on wood. And I didn't mean to smile because when you first started, you mentioned crippled children, and I was going to cut you off like, wait, you used to cripple children? So I didn't want to correct you.
No. I was in crippled children. It was for children who had different leg
I know I'm going to hell.
Their legs were crooked or their feet were turned. They were some kids, their toes were inward, were out, or their feet were like this. Where mine actually were turned to the side facing the same direction. So I wore correction shoes to actually straighten my feet. But my legs were what they called knock knees. So my legs, when I stood together, the lower part of my legs never came together. They were like this.
Ah,
So, so when I was a teenager, I was actually made fun of when I ran in gym class because, the norm. Well, apparently I didn't know that when I ran, my legs kind of kicked out on the side. So kids made fun of me. The gym teacher made fun of me. And I had no idea why until the gym teacher said something. And of course, I was offended by it, but I was like, I can't, there's nothing I can do about it. But once they realized my issue, they stopped making fun of me. So that was just something I dealt with. And I thought, yeah, someday, just someday.
I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and then I also matured early as a child, which means I wore a bra when I was in first grade. Most girls don't develop like that because that's not the norm. But for whatever reason, I developed early, so I was actually going to a gynecologist as a child. So there's a lot. So, but and the gynecologist said because of maturing early, I was going to go through menopause by the age of 35. That never happened. I don't know when it stops.
You mentioned professional wrestling. Who interests you in professional wrestling? I know you mentioned off the air you liked Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. How did these people, and you mentioned Ted DiBiase. I got to meet him too, but then I found out he's being arrested for tax invasion. So it's kind of like, well,
I
I
saw
like
that
to
too. Yes.
I like to remember him when he was a wrestler, not a convict.
Right. Yes. When I was little, I would say my dad and my grandpa. My parents took me to my first live pro wrestling event in Wheeling, West Virginia, which was one of the arenas. A lot of them used to wrestle when they came to this area. They would. It was called the Civic Arena at the time, but now it's changed to West Baco Arena. But I can remember I was probably 5 or 7 years old, and for whatever reason, I can remember seeing Ric Flair down there in his shiny robe, and all his girls, and doing this woo. you know, my dad liked the Road Warriors. That was his favorite. So all the greats were there at the time. you know,
I never got the chance to meet Hawk, but I did meet Animal and took a picture. He let me wear the spike, so it's really cool. I really was.
yes,
I mentioned my talk show to him, but unfortunately, he passed away, and we never got that opportunity.
yeah. I've never met Hulk Hogan, although I would love to meet Hulk Hogan. I think it would be really neat.
I
But
also
yeah,
got the chance that I met Pat Patterson. He was really nice. I even met Mean Gene. I started talking him up on the offer a while before. There's actually a convention called Big Event that goes to New York. I don't know, have you ever gotten to Big Event?
not in New York, no.
I would recommend Big Event. It's really good. It's Event and WrestleCon. It's really good.
Yes, I've been to Wrestling Con in New Jersey. And in fact, it was after we had Tommy Rich and Manning Fernandez. And I went there, and Tommy Rich of course, they both recognized me. And Tommy just put his arms up, gave me a big bear hug. Yeah, and we walked to his table, arm in arm. Really cool. And and that's when I first met Tony Atlas. And then, of course, we brought Tony Atlas to our show. And they had the General Lee there. And when I saw Tony Atlas go over to the General Lee, and I could see what a fan he was. I said, I like him already. Because the Dukes Hazard was one of my favorite childhood shows. And of course, I like John Schneider. That was my childhood crush. But seeing him going over there, and doing basically what I did. I was like, I like him.
And he was great on Smallville too.
Yes, he was. Yes, John Schneider. Yep. I met him when I was 12 here in Wheeling. When he kind of got away from acting for a little bit, he put out records. So he's a country singer also. And anybody who was anybody in country music performed in Wheeling, West Virginia also at the Capitol Music Hall. And that's where
Nice.
I met him at.
Now, what were some of the wrestlers that you met that you kind of like, oh, they were okay, but you just didn't have a good interaction with?
Um, well. I would say the Powers of Pain. We didn't have them both together. We had one at a time, but I really didn't have a good connection with them. I don't. I think his personality just didn't click, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were. Yeah, the Powers of Pain.
For me, I would say Giorgiano Steele. I first approached him at the time my show was called Uncensored. Keith Andrew Network presents Uncensored because I liked how Hershey's and Snickers presents WrestleMania. I'm like, okay, well, how can I have something like that? Oh, the Keith Andrew Network presents Uncensored. That was because I was doing my show by myself and I was trying different ideas. So I went over to him and not in person. I was all on video, and I called him and say, "Hey, my name's Keith Andrew. I'm a talk show host with disabilities. Love to have you be a guest." Oh, absolutely! I would love to be a part of it. 2 weeks later, I called back and see he said, "Absolutely not. If you ask me again, I'm gonna tell you off." And I'm like, "Okay, what happened in that 2 weeks?" And I'm like, okay, well, can we do the interview off the record? I like to extend my hand to you in friendship. He said no. Okay, well, can I at least build a friendship with you? Can I at least, talk to you, ask you for your advice? And he pretty much told me, F off. And it's like, well, you just lost yourself a fan. But I found out from, I think, Bret Hart, or someone else who worked with George Animal Steel, that he was actually an asshole. So I was like, well, I don't feel that bad. Actually, I think it was Bret Hart that said he wasn't a nice person.
Bret Hart. Oh my goodness, he still gets a lot of fans. A lot.
I'm one of his biggest fans.
Are you? Yeah, I got to meet him too last year.
I
Yeah.
gotta. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I met him last year at the wrestling con, and I met Sergeant Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter was awesome.
He was nice. I met him as well. Funny story. When I met Bret Hart, I was about 5 or 6 years old. He came to Middletown, New York, and we were on. Let's see. He was doing an autograph sign from 10 a.m. to about 2. So we showed up about like 11, 12. So we were standing on line and we were way, way, way down there. So my parents went off, they did shopping. They came back and my dad's like, did this line even move? Anyone even move? So we got closer and my dad's like, you believe this guy? He's signing autographs, his head's down, sign pass, sign pass. And I don't know if he was acknowledged, Brett was acknowledging people beforehand. But when I got over there, he didn't. My two brothers before me went up, head down. So I got pissed. I made up my mind. I'm going to get him to look at me no matter what. So I thought it was my brother Matthew who grabbed my autograph. So it was my tiny hand, put a death grip on it. Then I realized it's being pulled to the side of where Brett was. And Brett dropped the marker. And I thought he was going to say, hey, kid, you want me to sign this or not? But I guess he looked at my little hands. He stopped, looked up at me, and he smiled. Out of everyone before me, he didn't make eye contact. Then he realized he looked at me and realized there were people behind me. I'm like, ah, crap. Now I have to acknowledge them. Thanks, kid. But I'm 36, and that still means everything to me. Out of everyone that day, I got him to look at me. And that's my favorite
I
story of
mean,
Bret Hart.
that's awesome. I could tell you a story about Tony Atlas, actually. Back in October, when I was still with Legend Pro Wrestling, I went and picked him up at the airport, and then we drove to West Virginia from Pittsburgh. And he said, Loretta, I am hungry. Where can I get chicken, good old fashioned chicken on a bone? Because he was born and raised in Virginia. So Virginia and West Virginia are very similar in the home cooked food area. So to Bob.
KFC.
I took him to Bob Evans, and of course they didn't have chicken on a bone. So I took him across the street to one of our local sport bar and grills called TJ's, and he got wings. So he was happy. I was like, oh, thank goodness. I'm like, I got Tony Atlas in my car, and I'm taking him to a restaurant, and we're eating out. I mean, that's not something you can say you do every day.
Hey, right now you're living my dream because I would like to have some big names on the show. Well, let me ask you something, and not to put you on the spot. I want to ask, if I may, do you agree or disagree? Should I pay people to be on my show?
Um,
I want you to be completely honest.
Most of the time, they don't charge to be on your show, but a lot of the podcasts do is they have where fans, supporters could pay you, like stars. I don't know how it all works, but they can pay you to support what you do.
No, absolutely, because I get into a lot of arguments with people. Say, yes, you if you want to have these big name stars. I give you an example. Nunzio, Sandman. And a couple other stars, former wrestlers. Again, you want me on the show, you have to pay for me. Then on the other hand, I had a lot of stars on the show, and they say no, absolutely not. You do not pay people. You don't, and it's kind of what I said. I don't pay people because if I'm paying you, I'm bribing you to be on the show. You're not supported by being on my show. You're supporting someone with disabilities
Mm,
and you're supporting other people with disabilities. By
right.
me giving you money, it comes, I feel that, and I could be wrong, but I feel it undermines the fact that you don't care about people with disabilities. You're just doing to have, and I get it, it's a business transaction, but
Mhm.
by being on the show, it says a lot about your character and it says a lot about you. So again, when I people say "Hey, you have to pay me," I'm like, I appreciate you. I love your career. I will wait till you change your mind. But maybe I'm wrong, but I don't like bribing people. I paid one person and I said never again because that guy turned out to be an asshole.
And especially a star, the the bigger the star, they expect to get paid for their booking. Um, Now I'm sure there's a lot of them that would just come on your show and do it for free, you know, but then you got the other ones who expect to be paid.
I
And,
agree.
you know, but somehow, I'm not sure how they do it, but you can have it where, people seeing your show, your viewers, your fans could,
I have
offer some kind of donation or
yeah.
whatever to support. So you can do that. Yeah.
No, that's fine. But the problem is I am unemployed, and so I have no money. If I had a sponsor, yeah, absolutely, I give you whatever you want. But I'm really a one person, a horse and pony show. I'm a one person. I probably got a
Right.
bus or that one too. But I'm like one person doing everything. how about we negotiate? You help me and I help you. But yes, people say there's like something called buy me coffee or um
Yeah,
there's
you can
something
do it
called
virtually.
Patreon. But to be honest, I can tell you off the air, but if there's a lot of red tape on that, but we can talk about that off the air. But yeah, there's Patreon, buy me coffee. But anyway, that's a completely other subject. But the other one I want to talk to you about is who do you still work with the wrestling company? And do you have any advice for people like me that would want to work with an independent wrestling company? What are the do's and what are the don'ts?
Well, every independent wrestling company is different. Um, there are some that are more successful than others. And the one I was with, um, let me just say, everybody had to help pay for the shows. So if you could get with a show where they already built their money and they have their own account, so they're more successful. That would actually be a safer route, you know.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to pass this show over to you. It's the last 8 minutes. Was there anything you want to ask me? I have no cards on my sleeve. Is there any subjects you want to talk about? Any funny stories? But the one thing I do want to ask you real fast, the independent wrestling circuit near me, let's see, I'm near New Jersey, the Monster Factory. I don't know if you heard of them. There's the Monster Factory, where Bam Bam Bigelow went to, or King Kong Bundy went to. Let's see, East Coast Pro Wrestling and Northeast Pro Wrestling.
There, I've heard of, I think, isn't AEW out there in New Jersey,
No, AEW is in Florida.
Florida?
In New Jersey, there's only, well, there's a couple. There's ICW, something wrestling. Um, Northeast Pro Wrestling's really big. They have their independents and they do autograph signings. Um, East Coast Pro Wrestling, it's a facility where you become like a beginner
Mhm.
wrestler, and the Monster Factory is really big in New Jersey too. I mean, every state honestly has their own
Yeah,
wrestling academy, but
you could you could see if you could do podcast there with the stars or talk to the fans, you know,
you know,
and
act,
to help promote them and promote you. And you could find different ways of making money while you're there too.
it's funny as we were talking. I was just having ideas, but the problem is I don't drive. But well, the worst they can say is no.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, the next one I want to ask you, then I promise I'll pass the show over to you. And actually, you can ask me anything you want in return. What is, how do you feel about the scandal on Nickelodeon? Quiet on the Set. Stupid me. I thought it was a new show. Oh wow, Nickelodeon, Quiet on the Set. I thought, when does this there? And then I found out what it was about perverts and child molesters. Like, well, forget that. If I want to see that, I just watch Criminal Minds or SVU or something.
Well, it's pretty sad when they took quiet on the set to mean something like that. Because quiet on the set typically means when the director is getting ready to film,
Yeah,
it would say quiet on set. So there's no background noise. So the only sound you hear is what has to be heard is the actors talking, you know, and watching them move and do their part. You shouldn't have to hear somebody over here on their cell phone going ding ding ding. That's what it's really supposed to mean. Literally, no one's to be talking, no one's to walk. You stay still because them cameras pick up every sound. So now it means something way, way worse. So sad. And it's such a sad situation. I really am not going to touch on that because Hollywood has had those problems for years.
Yeah.
Even goes way back, even before this time. Now, they talked about Shirley Temple when she was little. She was, you know, groomed, as they call it.
If you have money, they just say, how much do I have to pay you to shut you up?
Right.
Like to Vince McMahon. Let me explain. I like Vince McMahon because he gave me so much in my childhood. He gave me Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Brett, Owen, Michaels, Triple H. He
Right.
gave us entertainment.
Yes.
Now, is he a big piece, and it's uncensored, is he a big piece of shit? Absolutely. Is he a disgusting person? Absolutely. Am I thankful for what I got from him? Absolutely. Now, Walt Disney, he was no better. He was a Nazi sympathizer, but you got the mouse. You got
Uh-huh.
Mickey Mouse. You got Dumbo. You got Jumblebug. You think all these people, like Trump, for an example, are all squeaky clean? Did they get? Well, we didn't get anything from Trump, but Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, um, jack off, or MySpace and Facebook. Now, a lot of time I get my Facebook turned off, but in fact, MySpace, but that's fine. I make my own website. MySpace, Facebook, Twitter. Do you think these people really care, like for the normal person? No, they just think there's a sucker born every minute, and if they want to sell their soul, how can I take advantage of that? So, yes,
Right.
Vince McMahon gave us so much, but by any stretch of imagination, no, he's not a nice person.
Right.
But one thing I would say, down, pass it over to you.
Mhm.
Trump did give us one good thing. He hosted WrestleMania 4 and 5.
Yes,
And
he did.
at the end, I'm really annoyed that they tore down the building too, but passing it over to you. You can ask me anything you want, talk about anything you want. Don't worry, I have that effect on people.
So, where were you born at?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York. And you live in New Jersey?
Oh no, I live on the border in New Jersey. I live in the Hudson Valley.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. So, tell me about your disability. And you tell
Well,
me about the.
yeah, absolutely. Before it kicks us off,
Sure.
um, I'm pretty much like you, only I learn at a slower pace. And because of that, I fall under the spectrum of being retarded. So I give you an example. You can have a script, or if you're taking a test, multiple choice. And I'm like, okay, well, can you read the questions to me? And then they're like, okay, well, can you give me an example? Because A and B are similar. Can you explain A to me? Can you explain B to me? Because I learn at a slower pace. That's what I'm classified as.
Okay. I understand that. Yeah. And my mom, well, she wasn't like that, but she used to be in special ed classes in high school just because she was, she comprehended things at a different rate than everybody else.
I do have a couple questions for you off the air. Wrapping up, it was a real honor to put having me as a guest. I'm looking forward to part two down the road. And until we meet again, I really appreciate it. But if you're everyone who's watching, make sure to like, share, comment. Our goal is to reach 500 of our views. And until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you and have a good night.